Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody. Today we have John Mead, who is the Senior Director of Engineering and responsible for the cnMatrix program. We will get started in a minute or two just to make sure that everyone can join us today. So yeah, we will just wait a few minutes. And John, take it away whenever you're ready.
Great, thank you very much, Susie. Yes, we'll wait 1 or 2 more minutes for others to, and then we'll get.
I see our audience growing, so yeah, we'll just wait until it is 9:01 my time. We'll wait maybe till 9:03, 9:04.
Hey, Susie. How do I show the webinar control panel with my slides up?
So do you see where the play button is, and there's a drop down that says screen, and then you can select which monitor you would like to show.
Perfect, thank you.
No problem.
I'm sorry, which drop down was that?
So towards the top on your panel, you have the play button, and it says show, and then right underneath it is screen, and there's a drop down, and you should be able to select a screen, or you can press the play button. That'll work too.
Susie, can you see my screen now?
I cannot.
Yeah, for some reason the play, there's the show button is grayed out for me. It is behaving differently than my previous times there.
It's weird because you are an organizer, but that's no problem. I have your slides and I can share them.
Okay, let me try this one more time. I think I have it.
Oh, yep, there you go. Okay, I can see your screen.
Myself the presenter.
Perfect.
Got it. Okay, 1 more minute and then we'll get started. Okay, I think we will go ahead and get started. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody. Today I'm going to talk about cnMatrix. cnMatrix is Cambium's newest portfolio of products. It's the Ethernet switching portfolio. If you think about it, Ethernet switches are kind of the next logical step for Cambium. Today we sell a lot of wireless devices that make up the wireless fabric, both in the fixed wireless space as well as the Wi-Fi space. But all of those devices plug into a switch at some point, right? So for the last 10 years or longer, we've been selling these wireless devices and they all plug into a third-party switch. Well, now with cnMatrix, they can plug into a Cambium Ethernet switch, which provides a more complete and more comprehensive solution. So today it's going to be a short overview, about 30, 45 minutes, and then we'll open it up to Q&A. But if you want more information on cnMatrix or want to dive deeper, please reach out to your local contact, and I'll be more than willing to have a separate webinar with you guys and dive deeper. Okay, so let's get started. Okay, this first slide is kind of a high-level view of our long-term strategy. we're not building just one switch to accomplish our needs. We're actually going to build 3 different families of switches that are targeted at 3 different deployment scenarios or 3 different use cases. So these Ethernet switches are going to be purpose-built for these deployment scenarios. The first family of switches is the Enterprise Indoor Access Switch, and this is the switch that we're coming out with first. In fact, it's shipping this quarter, Q4, and as of a week ago or so, we actually started shipping, so very exciting times for us. There's 4 models available, and I'm going to go into more detail on this in a later slide. The next family of switches is targeted at the WISP deployment scenario. These switches are coming out next year, and we'll have several versions available. We're going to have an 8-port version, a 16-port version, and a 24-port version. AC and DC power options. They will have the integrated Cambium sync, as well as an extended temperature range, and also support for some of the passive PoE requirements that are out there. For example, cnMedusa that needs 90 watts. Our third family of switches is geared towards outdoor video surveillance and smart city type of deployments. Also, this is also coming out next year. This switch will be hardened fully for outdoors, IP67 rated, AC powered, 4 ports, and we'll be able to support both active PoE as well as 30-volt passive PoE for our subscribers. And one more kind of global point for all 3 families of switches is that we will be supported with cnMaestro, so you can have a single pane of glass management for all of your Cambium devices. I'll talk a lot more about cnMaestro later. Okay, so here it is. These are our 4 models that we're coming out with this quarter. In fact, they've started shipping. They've been orderable for 1 to 2 months now. It's like I said earlier, it's a very exciting time for us because we are shipping. We started our beta trials program in September, and now we are formally shipping as of last week. So let me go into a little bit more detail on these 4 models. The 4 models are as follows. We have 2 of the 24-port switches, which is actually 28 ports. So the 24 I mentioned is 24 1 gig access ports. And then we have the 4 uplink or 4 fiber uplink ports that are SFP+. So we have 2 of these 24-port models, one with PoE and one without PoE. And the same thing on the 8-port models. We have 2 8-port models, one with PoE and one without PoE. On the 8-port models, we have 2 fiber uplinks. Those are 1 gig SFP uplinks. So a little bit about the naming convention. So cnMatrix EX. So what is the EX? EX represents the enterprise. The EX is for the enterprise. When we come out with the WISP switches, maybe there'll be TX for tower switch, or I don't know, WX for WISP switch. And then we'll have VX, which is for video switch. Okay, so the next digit, the A here, or in the 2028 case, the 2, this is for the market segment. So these switches are targeted at the enterprise space. They're targeted for the access layer or the edge of the network. So, so within that space, there's kind of a low end, a mid range, and a high end switch. These 2028, these are targeted at the mid enterprise edge segment. The next digit, B, is the generation of the switch. So in these current switches, the 2028, for example, the 0, this is our first generation switch. 3 years from now, when we might build another version of the switch based on newer silicon, then it would be the 2128. And then the next 2 digits, this is the number of physical ports. So for example, the 2028, that means we have 28 physical ports, 24 access ports, plus 4 uplink ports. And a question I get often is these uplink ports, they're incremental, they're in addition to the 24 ports. So it's truly 28 active ports. Same thing on the 2010 model. So that's 10 active ports, 8 access ports, plus 2 fiber uplink ports. The next digit is for a special identifier, not used currently, But for example, we do have plans for a 2.5 gig or multi-gig switch. And in that case, we would use probably like a 2028M. I have an example of that later. And then finally, the -P represents if the switch supports PoE or not. So some examples, here are our existing switches, the EX2028, which is 24 by 1 gig plus 4 by SFP plus, the 2010. Another example, and this is a switch that is currently under design, won't be available till next year, but the 2052, so that's 48 1 gig ports plus 4 SFP plus. And so the point here is that the model name is very descriptive of what the box is. Another example is the 2022M. This is our multi-gig port, multi-gig switch. Another example is maybe we'll come out with a higher end enterprise switch. So as an example, a high-end enterprise switch might have dual, removable, and redundant power supplies. These current models have a single internal power supply. So anyway, if we do come out with this higher end switches, we would increment that from 2 to a 3, so it'd be the 3028. Likewise, TX, here's our WISP switches, TX 2028, and an example of our video surveillance switch, the VX 2004. Okay, next slide. So the space we're going after, I just kind of wanted to clear this up a little bit, talked about it a minute ago, but here is an example of the enterprise access layer. So within this space, it's a very big space, so about an $8 billion market segment. So we are going after the mid-enterprise space here with our current 2K family. You know, we could build a 1K family later down the road, going more after the SMB space. And again, we could build a 3K family that goes after the high-end space. So let me dive into the hardware on these units a little bit. A very common question that I get asked is if these switches are OEM switches, and there's nothing wrong at all with the OEM model. You know, you can go to Taiwan or China or anywhere and find a switch that is really close to what you want to offer, and then you put your name on it, and voila, you have a switch to offer to the marketplace. This is not the strategy we used. These switches from Cambium are designed from scratch, both on the hardware and software side. On the hardware side, what we've done is we've used a silicon-based switching solution. So we have dedicated hardware for the data plane. That allows us to have L2 and L3 line rate processing. During some of our early beta trials, customers did notice very responsive switches and an improvement over what they were currently using. Also with this silicon solution, we have a very rich set of L2 and L3 features that I'll talk about in a bit. It gives extensive QoS, extensive access control lists and filtering, and so on. So there are 4 models available. I touched on this already. These switches also have a USB port, a true out-of-band management port, which can be very useful. If the main network goes down for whatever reason, a customer can still access these switches remotely if he uses the out-of-band network management port. And then, of course, we have an RJ45 port for local console use. It is interesting to note that 3 of these 4 models are fanless. So when you plug them in, you won't hear anything. You'll see the LEDs light up. They are operational. The 4th model, it's the 24-port PoE model. You know, too much heat is generated there, and we do have 2 fans in the 24-port model. Okay, moving on to software. This is probably my favorite slide here. I'll try not to spend too much time, but something that you guys want to hear about and something that I enjoy talking about is the Cambium differentiation. Before I talk about the Cambium differentiation, what's also very important, maybe even more important, is the fundamental switching components of these Cambium switches. So the foundation of these switches. So a year and a half ago, when we set out and we gathered the requirements for these switches and defined these switches, we came up with 4 guiding principles as we went through the design of these switches. And the first one, probably the most important, my favorite, is quality. So from the beginning, we wanted to design a switch that is dependable, reliable, robust, but at the same time, through innovation, wanted to keep it competitively priced. So affordable quality is a term you hear at Cambium a lot, and definitely applies here to the switches. So high quality We talked about it at the beginning of the program, all throughout the program, and still talk about it today. We stand behind our quality quite a bit. We do not have the standard 1-year warranty, and we have a limited lifetime warranty on these switches. The second guiding principle, and also very important, was the ease of use of these switches. So it was very important for us to have a switch that is easy to deploy, easy to configure, easy to maintain, and also easy to troubleshoot, right? If the customer has a problem in his network, a problem maybe related to the switch, or maybe a problem somewhere else in the network, we want to provide diagnostics and utilities to make it easy for the customer to troubleshoot the problem. Okay, the third guiding principle is feature richness. So, we're coming out with a switch, an Ethernet switch, not new in the industry. There's a lot of vendors you can buy switches from, fairly mature. So there's a long list of features that are expected and required when you buy an Ethernet switch. And our goal was on day one to have every feature that you need. If you look at the list of features from any of the other switching vendors, we absolutely do compare to them head on. So I've divided these features into 4 kind of categories. L2 switching, absolutely at the edge of the network, maybe most important, but we have a long list of L2 switching features, everything that you would expect in an L2 edge switch. What's interesting here is our L3 switching capabilities. On the edge, it's not always required to have L3 switching. Half the vendors out there sell L2 only switches. We made the decision in the beginning that we wanted to have L3 capability at the edge. Some L3 edge switches out there will support static routing only. We do support static routing, but we also support dynamic routing with RIP and OSPF. So it's an L3 solution as well. The third category is management, and cnMaestro is our cloud-based management for all of our devices at Cambium, and cnMaestro also supports our cnMatrix switches, and it will on day one, and I'm going to talk about cnMaestro a lot. But in addition to the cloud management, we also have a very comprehensive CLI solution, so you have access to every aspect of every feature on our switch with our CLI. It's a Cisco-like syntax. So if you know how to configure a Cisco switch, you'll be able to configure our switch as well. In addition to CLI, we have a web GUI, and also every feature is instrumented with SNMP. So if the customer has a favorite SNMP application, they can use that as well. On the security side, the last category, but not least, security is very important. I'll talk more about this later, but we have a long list of security features as well. So if I pause here for a minute on this slide, based on these 3 principles, we can go to market today and we can compete with any switching vendor. I would argue our switches are a little bit better. We have put a lot of time into the quality, ease of use, and from a feature point of view, feature by feature, we do compare. So I think we're good to go just based on this. However, we did want to add a little bit of differentiation, so some innovative ideas. The first one here is the intelligent edge. This is a term that we use at Cambium a lot. And for the switches, we're talking about a suite of features. I'm going to highlight 3 items here. The first item is policy-based automation. So this is the feature that will give you a true zero-touch experience. And I actually am going to dive deep on this one item in the next couple of slides. So for now, I'll skip to the second feature. So the second feature is enhanced security. So we have the ability to profile the devices that connect into our switch. And based on that profile, we can auto-segment that device into the correct network or into the correct VLAN. A very nice feature that we think customers will benefit from quite a bit. The third feature within this intelligent edge suite of features is wireless aware. So our switches are wireless aware. And what this means is that today, all the wireless devices that Cambium makes plug into a third-party switch. And we like to say these Cambium wireless devices plugging into third-party switches, you get 1 + 1 = 2. However, now with cnMatrix, if you plug these Cambium wireless devices into a Cambium switch, we like to say you get 1 + 1 = 3. In that situation, in that scenario where we have both halves of the equation, we have the device and the switch, we're able to provide extra functionality and capability for the customer. Okay, next Cambium differentiation, something I've mentioned before, but it is very, very important. These switches are cloud managed. So it's very popular for wireless devices to be cloud managed. It's not quite as popular for switches to be cloud managed, to be truly cloud managed. So not only is cnMatrix cloud managed, but it's cloud managed with cnMaestro. So with cnMaestro, you can now have one management interface for all of your Cambium devices. And what you expect today with cnMaestro for the existing Cambium devices, you can expect the same thing for cnMatrix. So the initial onboarding registration, the zero touch for initial deployment that you get with the initial config that's downloaded, and if desired, the initial image. Also monitoring, probably the most popular use of cnMaestro. Not just the instantaneous monitoring of stats, but the historical monitoring of the stats. So you do trending and graphing of your stats. Configuration. So yes, of course, you can configure your switches. And just as a reminder, cnMaestro is not a device management tool. It's a network or system management tool. So when you're configuring your switches, you can configure all your switches and networks simultaneously if you desire. So whether the customer has a switch or 100 switches, you can configure them all simultaneously. Troubleshooting. cnMaestro, of course, has lots of very flexible tools for troubleshooting the network. So this slide here kind of a high-level summary of the features and capabilities in cnMatrix. I'm going to dive into the next slide. I'm going to now talk about the zero-touch experience, which is one of our highlighted features. So this falls into the category of ease of use. So let's talk about
John, are you there?
And we do this with cnMaestro, and this is how we solve it with our other products at Cambium as well. So when you talk to people in the industry about zero touch, this is mainly what they're talking about. However, there are two. I just got some messages that you guys haven't been able to hear me. Hey, Susie, can you text me how far back did I drop off?
The audio was just breaking up a little bit on the last slide during your last two animations, but now, and then it cut out for a little bit, but now I can hear you and it's much more clear.
Okay, thank you, Susie.
No
Sorry
problem.
about that, everybody. So on this slide, just let me repeat a couple items. Zero touch. So from a zero touch point of view, when people talk about zero touch in the Ethernet switching market, they're talking about initial deployment. So when you initially deploy your switch for the very first time, the configuration that's necessary, how do you automate that? So at Cambium, we have solved that with Maestro. When you switch, you will onboard cnMaestro and with zero touch. However, I feel for a true zero touch experience, it's not just about the initial deployment, it's also about required for ongoing operation of your network. So, a couple of examples. When your switch has been deployed as a switch, when you plug in an access point, you'll have to set some VLANs, and you'll have to make those VLANs a member of the correct ports, the port that the access point has been plugged into, as well as the port or ports that are used for your uplinks. So that configuration is required when plugging in access points. Same thing with video surveillance cameras. There are some unique configurations that's required on your switch. Configuration for the switch as a whole, but also being plugged into. Same thing for any device you can think of, printers or IoT devices. When you start talking about IoT, now you're talking about thousands and thousands of devices. So for any type of device, there is unique configuration that's required on the switch. So the question is, for a zero-touch experience point of view, how do you automate that configuration? So a few more examples. So when you're removing devices, the configuration that was associated with that device on that port, you do not want to leave that configuration sitting there on the switch, dangling on the switch. For one thing, you want to keep your configuration clean. For another, from a security point of view, you don't want to leave like VLANs open on that unused port. So when you remove devices, there's also configuration that needs to happen, mainly removing configuration. Moving devices, same thing. You're removing it from one port, adding it to another port. You could be removing a device from one switch, adding it to another port on another switch. So configuration is required for that as well. So the question is, how do you solve this type of configuration, right? How do you know what you're going to be plugging in? How do you know what ports you're going to be plugging it into? So the way we've solved this here at Cambium is we have a feature called policy-based automation. So the customer will create policies, not just for the switch, but for his entire network. Those policies can be created for different types of devices, different classes of devices, or different users. And based on that policy, actions or configuration can take place. So it's a four-step process. We detect and learn about the device. We authenticate the device, whether that device is allowed on the network or not. Then we authorize that device for one or more services. When I say services, I'm talking about anything you might want to configure on the device, VLANs, security settings, QoS settings, and so on. And then the fourth and final step is once you've authorized that device for these services, you automatically configure the switch. So this is a really big feature for us, definitely a differentiator, and it's a very powerful demo to give as well. Let me talk a little bit more about policy-based automation. So what does it do? It automates adds, moves, and changes. The second bullet on this slide may be the most important. It eliminates the error-prone manual configuration. I'll give a demo on the next slide, but if you have to manually enter the configuration for an access point, let's say, that could equate to 10 to 15 CLI commands. You no longer have to enter that manually, which removes that possibility for configuration errors. What I've heard said in the industry, I don't know if I believe how high of a number this is, but they say 80% of network problems are due to misconfiguration. Okay, number three, every port is treated equally. You can plug that video surveillance camera into any port you want. It doesn't have to be ports 1 through 4, 5 through 8. Some teams deploy their networks that way. They'll hard code ports 1 through 4 for access points, and they'll hard code ports 5 through 8 for printers or whatever. So now every port is treated equally. You can plug any device into any port of any switch, and that device will be detected, and then the necessary configuration will be automated. Fourth item, it definitely enhances security. So based on these policies, we can profile these devices and then auto segment them into the right network or the right VLAN. And again, with this feature, little or no IT is needed for deploying these new devices or making changes, configuration changes to your network. I'm not saying the IT team's not needed. They're definitely needed, but they can be used for other more important activities. Next time, absolutely, for many of the reasons I've already stated, it reduces the expenses required to deploy and manage your network. It simplifies and reduces troubleshooting, which is a big time sink for networks in general. Okay, here's an example. So let's say we're going to plug an access point into our switch. And we're going to plug that access point into port 5. Now that access point is going to advertise 3 SSIDs. So let's say an employee SSID, a contractor SSID, and a guest SSID. So in this example, I'm using VLANs 40, 50, and 60. Those are the three VLANs that are bound to those three SSIDs. So if I was to configure the switch via the COI, it's about 15 COI commands. Now, if I was to plug a second access point into port 10, I would have to enter these commands again. With the policy-based automation feature, you replace these COI commands with the following single command. This is how you configure a policy on our cnMatrix switches. It's a single COI command. Now, you can configure these policies using COI or the web GUI or cnMaestro. The advantage of using cnMaestro to configure this policy is you configure the policy once for your entire network. These policies reside on the switches. So cnMaestro will push this policy down to all the switches in the customer's network, whether it's one switch or 10 switches or however many. So now you have the same policy on all switches. You can plug these devices into any port of any switch and they will automatically be configured regardless. Okay, deployment use cases. So I want to talk a little bit about where these switches can be deployed into the network. Now, my first example here are for WISP deployments. But I said in the beginning that these are enterprise switches. We have WISP switches that are coming out next year. However, I did want to point out that these switches can also be deployed in WISP environments. So on the right-hand side here, these enterprise switches, the EX2K family, they do not have the integrated GPS sync. They do not have passive high power that cnMedusa need. And they don't have a DC power option, although we're working on that one. So they still can be used for some WISP deployments, however, WISP deployments that don't need those three items. For example, the picture on the left, an EPMP tower. Our EPMP radios, those radios have integrated GPS sync, so they don't need it coming from the switch. Also, EPMP does not require these high power requirements like cnMedusa. As long as the devices can be powered via 802.3 AF or AT, then you're good to go with the EX2K family. And then finally, for the WISP deployments that don't require DC power, then you can use the EX2K family for those deployments. My second example here in the middle of the slide is a WISP tower that is going to use cnMaestro. So for deployments today that use cnMaestro, cnMaestro is not a switch. You need to couple together cnMaestro with a third-party switch. So today, when a customer deploys cnMaestro, they'll use cnMaestro with whatever switch vendor they choose to use. However, now with cnMatrix, the cnMatrix EX2K is a perfect switch to be bundled with the cnMaestro. So for cnMaestro deployments, you can bundle it with our cnMatrix EX2K family. Now, these are the enterprise switches. When we do come out with our WISP switches next year, then these restrictions are no longer present. Okay, this next slide is the most typical deployment of these enterprise switches. So this diagram that I have on this slide here, this is your typical three-tier network architecture. What I want to highlight here is the access layer. But this picture, this complete architecture includes the core of the network at the top, the distribution layer, if the customer has a distribution layer. If not, then it's a two-tier network. And then most importantly, the access layer. So the access layer needs to provide your wired and wireless connectivity to all of the devices in your network. And what I want to point out on this slide is we now have the complete story for the entire access layer. We've had cnPilot for a while, and it's doing very, very well, and that provides our wireless connectivity. But now with cnMatrix, that also provides the wired side, we have this complete solution for the customer. Now, when you add to cnPilot and cnMatrix, cnMaestro, it's a very, very powerful story. Huge market, $14 billion market space, just the access layer alone. I'm not talking about switches in the core or switches in the data center. So the edge switches in the access layer is about $8 billion, and then the access points are about $6 billion. So a total addressable market at this access layer of about $14 billion. Next slide. It's kind of the same slide, except instead of an enterprise campus deployment, more of an enterprise branch. So like Bank of America, Wells Fargo, you'll have 1,000 branches. Each branch is only 20, 30, 40 employees. So smaller branches, but many of them. The next example I have here is for a home office application. And bringing it all together, the message that I want to end with here is just the powerful, comprehensive solution that we have with cnPilot and now cnMatrix with cnMaestro. So enterprise grade, layer 2, layer 3 functionality, fully cloud managed. A little fun with this next slide, but our portfolio branding name is cnMatrix. Happens to be one of my favorite movies. So anyway, cnMaestro plus cnPilot plus cnMatrix. Okay, I think that brings me to a conclusion for today. I appreciate everybody's time. I'm going to open it up to Q&A. So please type. Let's see if I can bring up the Q&A window here. Yeah, here we go. So if you have any questions, oh, I see there's a lot of questions already. Let me try to go through these. Okay. People are commenting on being able to hear me. I hope for most of this presentation you guys could hear me. You missed the whole cloud-based management audio. Okay, let's see. So let me talk about cnMaestro. Let me just summarize that piece. It sounds like that's what I was cutting out. So cnMaestro today supports all Cambium devices, and that's true for cnMatrix as well. On our very first release of cnMatrix, we will be supported by cnMaestro. The functionality that you expect from cnMaestro, you will get all of that functionality on cnMatrix. You'll get your onboarding and registration. You'll get your initial config file and that initial image. You'll get all the monitoring capabilities, not just the monitoring of instantaneous stats, but the monitoring of historical data so that you can do trending and graphing of these stats. Of course, you can configure your network with cnMaestro. And again, cnMaestro is not just a device manager, it's a system or network manager. So when you're doing configuration with cnMaestro, you can apply that configuration to all your switches in the network, not just one switch. If the customer has 10 switches or 100 switches, you can configure them all simultaneously. The last item for cnMaestro is troubleshooting. So of course, all the very powerful tools that you have with cnMaestro today, you can use those with cnMatrix also. So hopefully I covered where I was cutting out. Let me move on to the next question. So there's a question about the tariff pricing. So all the tariff pricing for the US region anyway has been worked into the prices. So that's complete. Here's a question about the WISP. Let me try to see if I can expand this. Okay, will the WISP tower switches be able to power most of the gear that WISPs use like Nectonics does? So the WISP switches are almost locked down. Our requirements are still open. We definitely are going to be able to power up all the passive devices provided by Cambium. Maybe this question is about the flexibility of powering up other third-party devices as well, such as any device out there that needs 24 volts or 30 volts. The active 802.3 standard is 54 volts. So the decision is not final on that, but most likely we will be able to power up those types of devices. Are the tower switches extended temperature? Yes, they are. When I say these switches are PoE capable, it's PoE out. It's not PoE in. So you power on these switches. The enterprise switches are currently, you power on via AC. We're going to be coming out with the DC options later. The WISP switches definitely will have a DC option as well. Warranty is worldwide, yes. My audio is pretty patchy. I really apologize for that. Hopefully it's been better recently. This next question, let me see here. Something about VLAN filtering. I believe we have the VLAN filtering on a per port basis. I'm not entirely sure I'm understanding the question, but we can follow up later on that if you'd like. Okay, wireless aware, does this mean you can connect non-Cambium APs to the Matrix also? Yes, so you can absolutely plug any type of access point into our cnMatrix switches, any vendor's access point that you want. And using our policy-based automation feature, we can automate that configuration. However, with Cambium devices, we don't even need the policy-based automation. So the Cambium wireless devices, they will register and onboard with cnMaestro just like they do today. They will get all the configuration that's necessary. That information through proprietary means is also shared with the switch. So we will automatically be aware of the SSIDs that are needed. We'll automatically be aware of the VLANs that are bound to those SSIDs. So it definitely brings the automation to one further point. So it sounds like a lot of questions about my poor audio. Again, I apologize for that. Okay, it's back. Skipping through all these. Yeah, by the way, so I'm in an office in Bucharest, Romania. So maybe the network went out for a little bit there. Again, I apologize for that. Okay, next question. Do the enterprise switches require a climate-controlled environment? Yeah, you can't put them outside in cold weather temperatures. They need to go inside of an enclosure for sure. And the temperature rating is 0 to 50. And that gives us a very, very long MTBF. The switch actually performs fine outside of those temperatures, but the MTBF calculations will go down a bit. These switches currently will not show up in Link Planner, although that is something that's currently being discussed. So that's something we want to do for sure. The launching of these switches is now. So they've been orderable for about 6 weeks, and they just started shipping last week out of our Shanghai distribution center. SFP fiber modules, very popular question. We do not have pre-approved SFP vendors, so you can use any SFP that you'd like, but we do recommend you use SFPs from a vendor that you trust. So the retail prices, don't have them memorized. They are available for sure. The 24-port PoE MSRP is $12.95. That's the most expensive of the 4 models that are available. What PoE watts are the output, and is this all ports? Yeah, so for PoE, we support 802.3 AF/AT, so that's up to 30 watts per port. Our overall PoE power budget is 400 watts for the 24-port switches, and the 400 watts can be distributed across the 24 ports any way you want. So some ports, maybe they have IP phones connected and need 3 or 4 watts. Some ports might be connected to a mechanical moving video surveillance camera that might draw, only while they're moving, they might draw 20 watts or so. So anyway, the amount of power required on a per port basis will fluctuate, and the instantaneous power for the entire switch can't go above 400 watts. If it does go above 400 watts, we will start pruning ports based on a prioritization scheme. that can be configured by the customer. The presentation and the recorded audio will be available later. When are they available for purchase? That's now. Will these switches be available on the demo program? Absolutely they are. I don't have the details on that, but it's very similar to the other products in the company. I think the way it works is partners can purchase up to a certain number, I forget what the number is, up to a certain number of switches at a significant discount. Here's a question. Can I show the slide of Cambium differentiation again, please? Yes, absolutely. Let me switch to that right now. Okay, so let me summarize this slide real quick. Maybe this is one of the slides that where I was cutting out in audio. So to summarize this slide, 4 guiding principles for the architecture and design of our switches. Number 1, quality, dependable, reliable, robust. Put a lot of time and energy into that. Second guiding principle is ease of use, easy to deploy, easy to maintain, and easy to configure. The third guiding principle is feature richness. So if you look at the spec sheets from any switching vendor, we will have most, if not all, of the features that you see in any industry switching spec. The fourth guiding principle was, hey, let's do something a little special here. So some type of innovation and differentiation. And we really think we hit a home run with this policy-based automation. It's a very cool demo to give. I can give this demo to you guys at a later time on a separate call, or reach out to one of the local reps at Cambium. They can give you the demo. But the demo is, you walk up to a switch, you do a show config, show the VLANs, let's say, and you see only VLAN number 1, the default VLAN has been statically configured. When you configure this policy, let's say you configure a policy, which is a 1-line CLI command, and then you plug in an access point. After you plug in that access point, if you do another show VLAN command at the CLI, instead of seeing just VLAN 1, you'll see several pages of configuration. You'll see all the VLANs that were specified in that policy. All those VLANs will be magically created. The port where the access point was connected and the uplink port will automatically become members of those VLANs. Other VLAN related settings, for example, the native VLAN or the PVID gets set automatically. The egress tagging mode of the port will get set automatically, and so on. So this policy-based automation is a big win. So hopefully the user who asked that question, hopefully I answered it. Okay, moving on to the next question. Can I share the presentation? Yeah, I'll make sure that Susie has this presentation and we can share this presentation, no problem. What speeds are supported on the SFP? Yes, we support, like on the SFP Plus modules, on the 24 port, you can plug in either a 10 gig SFP or a 1 gig SFP. And do we support 10-100? I think we support 100 as well. Okay, there's a question about smart PoE. This is a feature we're looking into for our passive PoE support. The jury is still out on this one. We did have the concept of being able to automatically detect the type of device and the type of power that is required by that device. And we are going to be able to do that, right? If the device needs active standard-based PoE, or if it needs some type of passive PoE, we will be able to detect that. For example, with cnMedusa, we'll automatically be able to provide the 90 watts that cnMedusa needs. However, if you're going to use different types of devices that need 24 volts or 48 volts or active devices 54 volts. That's something that we're still looking into. Here's another question, expansion. Let me see if I can read this. I'm hoping that my audio is still good here. I'm not hearing any complaints, so. Okay, oh, I just. Trying to get back to that question. Okay, here it is. Okay, for example, we got ports 1 and 2 in trunk mode and want to filter the VLANs 10 and 20 for gig 1 and the VLANs 30 and 40 for, so I do not have an answer for this question. I'm going to have to follow up on this question later. So that's coming from Omar. So Omar, please contact me or the organizer, Susie, and I'll get back to you on that question.
John,
Yeah.
I just wanted to say that the slides and the recording will be posted to community and our YouTube page. And if anyone has any questions, they can certainly go on community and ask them. And that's an open forum, and we can respond to questions on there too.
Perfect. Thank you, Susie.
No problem.
Yeah, and so here's the question. We do not want to blow out anything that gets plugged into the wrong port. And I totally understand what you're saying. And this is why we're looking into this concept of, we call it intelligent PoE. So we're still looking into that. And I know we have those problems with other third-party switches. So, so stay tuned on that one. So what is the price? So our 24-port PoE switch, MSRP is $12.95. If you were to buy 4 separate SFP modules, you can buy those directly from third-party vendors. Pretty inexpensive, actually, especially relative to vendors that have their own SFPs. So I've been building switches for 20 years. My previous company, we sold our own SFPs at like a 10x markup of what we were buying them for. So buying them yourself directly from the third-party vendors, I don't have the exact prices here, but it's pretty inexpensive. Okay, I think I'm at the end of the questions. So thank you very much, everybody. And again, today, what can you cover in an hour? Not much. So today was meant to give you a high-level overview. Absolutely, if anyone wants to dive deeper, get in touch with us, and we can set up a separate detailed call to go deeper on any topic you'd like.
Thanks, John, for your time today. And I saw one more question come in. Can you share the slides into my email? Again, these slides and the recording will be posted to our YouTube page and our Cambium Networks community. You can access that on our website and go to the community forum. And the slides will be attached there as a PowerPoint and available for download there.
Okay. Hey, so thank you very much, everybody. cnMatrix, the level of interest that we're getting is quite strong. So we're all very, very excited. We were targeting November for a release, and we just barely hit it. I think we started shipping on November. But anyway, the switches are shipping. Again, we feel really good about the quality of these switches, as well as the features and the capabilities. I would like to highlight that we're just scratching the surface with these first 4 models. For example, we have a 48-port version coming next year. One of the most popular questions I get is, where's the 48-port version? So it's coming. In addition to more switches within the enterprise family, we will also have the WISP family of switches, as well as this outdoor video surveillance family of switches as well. So today, just the beginning. Stay tuned for more information. I'm looking forward to talking to all of you guys.
Thanks, John.
Bye-bye, everybody.